Hi, my name is Antonis and I'm a painter and an iconographer. Today you will see me painting the head of Saint Apostle Peter I'm following an icon originally painted by a famous iconographer from Crete, Andreas Rizos. And I'll try to explain my process step by step from the drawing of the facial features on the gesso till the end of the painting the face of Saint Peter. So stay with me if you are interested in my process, and I hope you are well and creative during this beautiful period of the year. And I'll try to be as thorough as I can. So as you saw, the first thing that I'm doing is drawing the facial features, the eyes, nose, etc. with black color on the gesso. And after that, I'm ready, as you see here, to paint the first layer of proplasmos, or the base color, or verdacchio, I believe is how the Italians call it. And for this verdacchio, I'm using cadmium yellow with some black, maybe a little bit, just a tiny little bit of white, and some iron oxide red, just a little bit. I want this verdacchio to be, this proplasmos, to be greenish, brownish, etc. Not very bright in value and not very dark. After that, I want a second layer of verdacchio in order for this to not be as transparent, and I don't want to lose the facial features that I have drawn, so I will paint again with a second layer of black the eyes and the nose, so that I will not lose them when I will paint, as you see here, the second layer of the proplasmos. This way, the facial features will be seen underneath. Now, I'm ready. Here, of course, you will see the process only on the head of Saint Peter. And now I am ready to paint the so-called γραψίματα, the facial features in this brown color, and for this I will try to be very thorough, and I'll try to be more, let's say, to paint them with more attention than on the layers I painted earlier, the black layer that I used earlier. And also I will be very careful to not create a color on my palette that is very dark. I want a color that is close, darker than my proplasmos, but not very dark. A mild brown color, just to to paint these the eyes, the nose, etc. So as you see, little by little, I will try to give expression to the saint. I will try to understand and guess how he might look, how his expression might be, and I'll try to give all my creativity in this at this stage of the icon, where I paint the facial features. For creating this color, I'm using some color of my proplasmos. If I don't have this color or it's dry, I will use some yellow ochre some black, a little bit of iron oxide red, something like that. And maybe also some cadmium. I don't give you specific recipes. I use my instinct and my close observation of my reference and try to understand what the master iconographer that I am studying must have used for these colors that he created. I hope this all does make sense to you. I know language for many of you is a barrier, but hopefully you will understand what I'm talking about and you will apply this for your paintings, for your icons. So after I've created this layer of γραψίματα, now I'm ready to move on to painting the lights. I want to say one more thing about γραψίματα, that it's also good to play with how fluid your color is on your palette. Try to use less fluid and more fluid colors when you paint γραψίματα in order to create lighter shadows and more blended shadows on the base color of Proplasmo. As you see here, I don't use just one color for γράψιμο. I use also more transparent, more light colors, etc. I know this is very, very hard for you to understand if you have completely no experience in iconography, but for those of you who have some experience, I believe this makes sense. And of course, it's also the video here, the image itself that explains better than my words. So anyway, back to the lights here, to painting the lights. Here I'm using a color on my palette that consists of titanium white, some cadmium red, and a little bit of yellow ochre. I want this first light to be pinkish enough, and with this color that is not very transparent and not very opaque. It's like it's like of middle transparency, I would say. I will create these shapes of light on the face of Saint Peter. While creating these shapes, as you see, I try to observe my reference, the printed reference that I'm using, and I will try to see which areas of each shape are more abrupt, where these lights are smoothly blended into the Proplasmo. I'll try to understand the nature, let's say, of each of these shapes, and what's the role that each one plays in order for the iconographer to depict the face of the head. I don't paint them blindly. I try to understand why these exist and how they help the depiction of the head. And now, after I've painted this, I will create a color that is a tone in between the first light and the Proplasmo, something in between those two, and try to smoothen and blend these two colors together, the Proplasmo and the first light. Now, when I'm creating this color on my palette, I will give you a little tip of mine. I like this in-between color to be a little bit greenier, have some greenish color to it. So I will add a little bit of cadmium yellow, just a little bit on my palette, and also I will add maybe a little bit of blue. So this in-between color that you see me now painting has a little bit of greenish color to it. Here I'm using the brush. It's very important to use the brush in a linear way. This is the Cretan way in iconography to blend one color into the other. It's something, a very unique way of blending, very characteristic for tempera though, and it's the signature of blending in the Cretan style of iconography. For the, let's say, the Macedonian style of iconography or the style of Constantinopolis, they blended with a more broad, more confident, let's say, well, the Cretan brushstroke can be very confident, but more broad brushstrokes, more painterly, let's say, brushstrokes. Here, the painter uses a more, let's say, manieristic way of painting. The Cretan iconographer, the brushstroke itself is an aesthetic value, an aesthetic something we want to please just with the brushstroke in the Cretan iconography. So use at this point your brushstroke in this linear way. Try to blend by using these tiny little small brush strokes, and the result is really beautiful, but it does require some experience. It does require that you know what's on your palette. You have to be sure to know what you are doing. As you see, after this first blending color, I will try to blend furthermore by adding more on my palette, some more color of my proplasmo, of my base color, creating an even darker in-between color. And with this darker in-between color that is also more thin, I have thinned it down, more transparent, I will do some further blending. For the Cretan iconographers, that's something interesting, I believe. As I said before, the important is also the way of painting, not just painting the figure, but also the brush stroke itself is very important, and they also, it's the same concept as manierism in Renaissance, where the artists in Italy during manierism, after the Renaissance period, they were trying to impress their audience by using some tricks, by impressing them with their brush stroke, maybe their subject matter, their drawing, excess drawing. Here, iconographers try to impress the audience with how fine their brush stroke can be, how beautiful, and not as much with creating volume by broad and confident brush strokes. Anyway, again, I hope you understand what I'm talking about. The language is here a barrier, but I hope this makes sense to you. Anyway, this linear way is also evident in many icons, let's say, or paintings of the early Renaissance in Italy. We can see this in the icons of Simone Martini or Fra Angelico, the Siena School. Giotto even uses this linear way of blending. It's something that was very popular during that period, and many artists even today use this for painting their secular paintings. Anyway, back to the blending of the face of Saint Peter. Now I'm using a third blending color. I will add a little bit more of the first light that I have on my palette. And as you see here, I will create a color that is very close to the first light, but a little bit more dark in value, more yellowy. And with this, I will further blend this first light. Now, for many iconographers, this process of blending flesh, blending the lights on the hands and face is the hardest thing. And I have to say it's pretty much, I would say it's very hard to accomplish and to master this way of blending. It is hard, but I used to believe that it is the hardest thing in iconography, but I now know that this is not. We have many iconographers, many students that have mastered this process, but this really doesn't make you a great iconographer by itself. Of course, it shows that you are skilled and that you have mastered some of the technique, but it's not what makes somebody a great iconographer. What makes an iconographer great is, of course, under debate, and many people would say different things. But I believe a great iconographer today is somebody who has a presence, of course, in painting, in wall painting, in painting monuments, big churches. This by itself, I believe, is something that is required to live for an iconographer, to live a monumental scale work. Also, I would say that you have to know where you stand in iconography. As an iconographer, you have to understand, to see the whole forest, not just to see a little tree, but the whole forest, and to have a great image of what's happening in iconography and where you stand in this tradition. Anyway, please do comment below if you have an opinion on what makes a great iconography, and if you have some names to give on the comments below, that would be very nice and very useful for the viewers of this channel. And now, as you see, I will add one more layer of color. This is the same color as my first layer of light, but a little bit more thin, a little bit more liquid. And with this, I will, let's say, underline these first shapes that I created. Now they are blended, and I will establish, let's say, these shapes of light. After this, I will have finished with this first light. I will have blended the first light to my proplasmo, and I will be ready to proceed to my second light. Again, I'm working, as you see here, with very thin colors, with very small, very tiny brush strokes, and I'm careful to not go beyond the area of blending. I'll try to restrain myself from painting all over towards the end of this shape. If I do some mistake, I will go back. I will get some color that is a little bit darker or appropriate to what the mistake is, and I will try to correct my mistake. Again, it's not the end of the world. Many people are obsessed about this process. As I said, yes, it is important. It is a sign, if you master this, that you are on a good path to become a great iconographer. But as I said, it's not the only thing that will make you a great iconographer. little by little, the face of Saint Peter becomes more vivid. I would like to thank so much my patrons for supporting these videos. Really, you guys helped me so much find some time to create these videos. Thank you so much for your support, and I will try to upload on patreon.com some tutorials, like how I painted the clothes here of Saint Peter and Paul, and also the face of Saint Paul that you see finished here. I will upload these on patreon.com if you want to find these tutorials there. Also, you can check my online course on iconography. This is a bunch of 25 videos, around 9 hours of videos, where I explain the process of icon painting from scratch, from the beginning till the end. This course is also in Greek. Many people ask me to upload these videos in Greek. You can find a full description of my process there, also in Greek. I will post a link of these online courses below on the description of this video. Anyway, now after finishing this first layer, as you see, I'm ready to paint some reds on the face, on the cheek of Saint Peter here. And using a very, very thin red color, where I have added some cadmium red and some yellow red and orangey result, very thin though. I will try to paint a little bit these more warm areas of the face. Of course, these I don't do them by myself. I have a printed reference right next to me where I paint, and I closely observe which areas need to be warmer, which areas need to be more bright, etc. So if don't freak out if you are completely a beginner in iconography. If you see me painting this, of course, I have a guide with me. Right next to me I have this printed icon of Andreas Rizos, and this icon is really helping me paint this icon. Now, as you see, I've already proceeded with painting a second layer of stronger light, and for this I'm using the color of the first light, and I will add a little bit of titanium white. It means that I'm using some yellow ochre, some cadmium red, some cadmium a little bit of cadmium yellow, and titanium white here. And with this, as you see, I will start by already painting my so-called ψημιθιές, my highlights. This is the Cretan very characteristic way of lighting a face by using these so-called ψημιθιές. And they are very typical, very characteristic of the Cretan tradition. One more manieristic way of painting. I don't believe these lights are naturalistic at all. The way a head is lit is nothing like that. So the Cretan iconographers took the highlights that were used in the Macedonian style, and they created a new style, very more manieristic, more, let's say, Japanese in the way of accuracy. And they created this style of highlighting a head that is very, very charming, very spiritual, unique in its way. And now, as you see, I will blend a little bit this these ψημιθιές that I created by using a very thin layer of light, of second light here, as you see, just blending a little bit without losing them. And thus I will be ready to proceed to my stronger highlights. Not yet, here you still see me blending, and now with pure black I will place the stronger lights on the head of Saint Peter. Now I am using a short Kolinsky brush, short round Kolinsky brush, but I believe that you can experiment and master painting these psimitheas, these highlights, also with a long hair brush, Kolinsky if it's possible, natural hair. I think the results might be even greater than the results by using a short brush. Anyway, this brush for me was very comfortable at this point, and I think the results were okay, but I want to try and experiment some more with long-haired Kolinsky brushes and see if the psimitheas will be amazing. I have seen some iconographers on various platforms where they use where their psimitheas, their highlights are truly amazing, truly like the old masters, and I have to say I'm a little bit envious of them as well. These are not bad, okay, they are I would say passable in iconography terms. But I suspect that I could do also a better job if I used a long hair brush for this kind of highlights. And I have to say that this is very pleasurable. Here a little bit more blending, some very light, very soft, with very thin colors blending, and now some painting on the lips. Don't be afraid to use intense colors for the lips. I used to be afraid to use very warm colors for the lips, very red colors. I thought that they might look as lipstick, but the old iconographers were showing me how red they used on their lips, and I was blind. It's something that I refused to see. It's interesting, sometimes things are just in front of our eyes and we just don't see them. If you try to see your reference with a fresh eye, as if you never seen it before, you might discover new things. So here I will paint these lips with this pinkish color without being afraid that this might look like lipstick. I want to thank also, that's something I always feel doing. I want to thank all of you, of course, for watching these videos so far. I know it's hard for you to stay with me, but thank you so much for being here. I hope you do learn something out of these videos, and this is nice to see on the comments that you like them and you find them useful. So again, thank you so much. Now I'll proceed with painting the eyes, the white part of the eyes, and as you see, first I painted a layer that is a little bit darker than my greenish proplasmo, my greenish base color, and then I will add a second layer that is lighter than my first layer, and then a third layer that is pure white. Again, the image makes more sense than my explanation. With that blue grayish color, I will paint also the eyebrows here, as you see. A first layer that is more grayish, more dark, and the second layer that is pure white. And now proceeding with painting the lights on the hair. First, as in the eye, I will paint a layer that is a little bit darker than my proplasmo. This is something that if you see it finished, it does make sense, but I wonder who really was the first to conceive such a brilliant idea. The first layer is a little bit darker than the second, as you will see later on. So it's really unbelievable to me how they thought of really for describing white hair, like the hair of Saint Peter here, who thought of painting first this darker layer of color that, as you see, was very, very thin as well, and then on this darker layer, adding now, as you see here, the second layer that is lighter, of course, grayish, and will describe very clearly the white hair of Saint Peter. Anyway, this is again in the style of the Cretan iconography, and it does make sense to us. It's very pleasurable to watch, and it's more pleasurable to paint.
Hi, I'm Antonis, and I'm proud to present you my online course in iconography, Paint an Icon with Me. This course will help you become a better iconographer, and it will help you be more confident when talking and presenting your artwork. It will make you understand in depth the studio practices of a professional iconographer like me, and you will get accustomed to what great iconography looks like. So learn in a simple and organized way everything you need about the materials, mediums, and techniques in order to make a beautiful icon. Paint with me the icon of Christ and learn how to paint better any icon you wish. I will see you at the studio.
Egg tempera that I'm using here, for me, it's most of the time, what's the word I'm looking for? Self-evident that I'm using egg tempera, but I should have said this before. This is egg tempera that I'm using with a Kolinsky natural hair brush, and it's so satisfying really to paint with egg tempera. It's so silky. There is really no other medium to paint fine details and layer upon layer upon layer, more enjoyable than egg tempera. So if you are using acrylics and you are considering using egg tempera, jump to egg tempera just for your satisfaction. It's going to be so much silkier, the way of painting, that is really, you'll never want to paint with acrylics again. Of course, here it's good to say that if you want to paint for an icon that's going to be displayed outdoors, or if you want to paint on canvas, then it's better to paint with acrylics. The result will be almost the same. Like, it's hard to see a difference on the aesthetic result, but for sure the process, the pleasure you'll get from painting with egg tempera is so much better. So little by little this icon comes to its completion. I hope this video was helpful to you and you saw something that was useful to you. Stay more in the studio, I would say, and find the creativity in yourself. Play with colors, play with your brush, with your materials. be in the spirit of a student. Don't worry too much about the result of your icons, and I believe that you will be fine, you will progress, and you will feel great about your paintings. I think the most important thing is to keep ourselves busy, keep ourselves creative, and get pleasure out of that. Don't be so harsh on yourselves. I try to not be as harsh. Of course, I try to improve, and I admire some other iconographers that are more accomplished, yes, but I stay in the spirit of learning and improving myself. It's not a competition. Painting is not a competition. There is room for everybody that wants to be professional, and I've seen so many icons that are not professional, let's say, or not painted by accomplished iconographers that are so beautiful. Anyway, just keep painting, be creative, and this is what's important in my opinion. So with adding this pure white highlight, this painting, this head of Saint Peter is almost finished. I hope you are well and as I said, creative and healthy. Stay tuned, more videos like this will follow in iconography and painting, and thank you so much for staying with me till the end. Be healthy, and I'll see you soon. Bye.